Well, it's Monday, the 7th of July. It's the height of summertime here in Ireland, and wherever you are in the world, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Vanishing. I set up this channel a number of years ago because of the disappearance and eventual murder of Justine Valdez, who came over from the Philippines. And I was very upset by that case, and I thought I would talk about it on here. Little did I realize that it would lead to thousands of people following me on YouTube. And thank you to all the people who have subscribed so far. I really do appreciate it. In fact, we have lots of people all over the world, in Singapore, Japan, parts of Europe. We've had people in Brazil, Germany, France, Australia, and even Maine in America. So let's just talk about the case of Michael Gaine. Last thing we heard was back in about 2.5 weeks ago, and that was a documentary on the TV in relation to the Michael Gaine case and about Michael Kelly, who was a suspect and released without charge. But there's been no updates in about 2.5 weeks. There's been very little written in the mainstream media. You can go on X, you can go on all the social media platforms, even in the Irish Times, Irish Independent, Sunday World, the Mirror. None of those mainstream media outlets are running any stories. Now, I don't know whether that's because the Garda press office have stopped giving out information or whether or not the case has stalled. I'm inclined to think it has stalled. I think possibly it looks like at this stage, earlier in the investigation, there were some flaws and some things that were done that shouldn't have been done. And I think that's why there's now going to be a review into the Michael Gaine case by GSOC and also into the Annie McCarrick disappearance. So the stalling of the investigation is strange because I believe there was a crime scene on that farm, and it looks like that crime scene was cleaned up and very little DNA evidence was left at the scene. In fact, Gardaí have confirmed that they believe there was a crime scene on that farm, but that there was a lot of tampering with that afterwards and washing it away and using disinfectant. So the stalling of the case is very unusual. And I thought when Michael Gaine went missing on the 20th of March, and then he was reported missing on the 21st of March, I thought this would be solved pretty quickly. I think initially in the beginning, many people thought it was a missing persons case or that he was suicidal and he'd gone off and done something. I think that's what the Gardaí thought. And then it turns out that that wasn't the case at all, and it looks to have been some criminal element involved. Michael Kelly, the former soldier who was living in the derelict cottage on the farm, has maintained his innocence, said he doesn't know what happened to Michael Gaine. Last time he spoke to him was when he left that day on the 10th of March. He came to the farm at 10 a.m. after leaving the centre at 9:52. He was seen there buying phone credit, and it would have taken him 10 minutes to get to the farm. He said he was going off to meet a man about a tractor. And I don't know whether Gardaí have tracked down the man who he was going to talk about, a tractor or a vehicle. I don't know whether, there's a lot of things we don't know, actually. And I suppose the Gardaí and detectives there working on the case are privy to that information. We don't know whether or not that RAV4 was driven anywhere. When Michael arrived on the farm, this is Michael Gaine, when he arrived at the farm at 10 a.m., I don't know whether that RAV4 was driven after that. And I don't know what the alibi of Mr. Kelly was when he left, because he was carrying out, they went over some duties that he was to do on the farm and stuff like that. And then he said he went back to make coffee at the derelict cottage while Mr. Gaine went off to meet a man about a tractor. And then everything goes dark or blank. We don't know what happened after that. Now, they may know more than they're saying. This is a Gardaí and detectives working on the case. They may know more. They might know more. But what we do know is that a detective or detectives went over to Maine in America. It's a beautiful state, by the way. And I haven't visited, but I've heard from people who have visited, some close friends of mine. They said it was one of their favorite states in America to visit. They had visited 5 previous to that, but they said Maine was their favorite. So detectives went over there to interview the ex-wife of Michael Kelly, and probably just on a fact-finding mission to find out information about him, because he was brought in for questioning, but he was released without charge. And as I've said on here many times before, you're innocent until proven guilty. He has applied for citizenship from what we heard, and I don't know how that's going to progress just because of the case and everything. But he hasn't been arrested for anything, so he hasn't been charged with anything, so he can apply for citizenship. However, he was living underground here illegally, so I don't know how that's going to impact on his application. And you also need, as we say here in Ireland, a few quid, a bit of spondulics, and you need a few euros to apply for that. I think Irish citizenship, I don't know if naturalization is different or whatever, but for most people, it can cost just over €1,000 to apply for Irish citizenship. It doesn't come cheap. And even for somebody who might be living here 10, 20, 30 years, who may have a passport in some other country and decide that they've been living here long enough, they've paid their taxes, they're married to an Irish person or whatever, even they have to pay that fee. So that's the way the process is here. But we do believe that's what he applied for. Um, he's also been put up in some flat or apartment in Tralee. I don't know whether or not he's been out busking. This is Michael Kelly now. I don't know if he's been out busking recently, but there was speculation in the beginning that he was charging €10 for a photo, for a selfie with him. I don't know how true that was, but that's what I read in one of the mainstream media newspapers. So they went over to Maine to interview the ex-wife, the ex-partner. I'm sure she probably would have given some information in relation to Michael Kelly, and that then will be brought back. So I don't know if they're building a case against him or they're just building a case against somebody else. But there's work going on. Just because there hasn't been any updates in 2 or 3 weeks, you can be sure that there is work going on behind the scenes. And am I hopeful of an arrest and a conviction? Yeah, I mean, I'm always hopeful. You have to have hope. Without hope, you have nothing. So you have to hope that somebody out there who did something to Mr. Gaine, did something really evil to Mr. Gaine, that person is out roaming the streets. Now, if they're still in Ireland, I don't know. Have they left the country? Again, I don't know. But somebody is responsible for the death of Michael Gaine, and they're out there. So that's not a good. We need to bring somebody to justice for that. But the longer it goes on, as I said before in my very first video about this case a couple of months ago, I said the longer this goes on without anything happening, it drops down from front page news to page 8 in the newspaper or online. It doesn't even get the headlines on a lot of the news sites. And that's the problem, because you need to keep these cases in the public eye, and you need people to rack their brains to think, have I got CCTV footage? Have I got dash cam footage or doorbell, ring bell footage or whatever? Have I got that? Maybe I should go and have a look at it again. Does it bring up something? Because it's very important that whoever did it to Michael Gaine is brought to justice. And, I remember on the 20th, was it the 20th of March, there was a cannabis drugs haul. And this is on the news, so you can go and look for it. 20th of March in Kerry, there was a drugs haul, €20,000 worth of cannabis. Somebody was stopped in a car. And then the next day, Michael Gaine went missing. And I was kind of thinking, well, maybe, could be a coincidence, but I don't think, Gardaí don't think it's anything to do with that. So we have to assume Michael Gaine wasn't involved in anything like that. From what we've found out about the case so far, but it was just a coincidence. The day before, that was on the 20th of March, the drugs haul, and then on the 21st of March, Michael Gaine was reported missing. But there's no connection to that drugs haul and Michael Gaine. I just want to put that out there. But at the very beginning, that was my kind of thought. Well, maybe that's what this is where it's going. But as we've read more and more about it, I don't think that's the case. So the case is stalled as far as we can see. Nothing really has come about in the last couple of weeks. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just think the more it's in the news, the more it keeps people interested in it. The less you hear about it, people get less interested, and they think about other news stories that are going on in the world, and there's a lot of them at the moment. So you can just imagine that's the focus will go somewhere else. So look, if there's any major updates, You know where you've got it. You've got the news here, and I'll bring it to you as soon as I get it. And make sure you subscribe and like the channel and share as well. It is Monday the 7th of July. Have a great day and a great week.